With the NFL draft in the rearview mirror, now is the best time of year to be making some trades for some veterans who are available at cut price costs. With the draft in the books, rookie fever is in full swing, and that gives you a fantastic opportunity to go out there and buy some players who are going to help you win titles, and you can get them much cheaper than you would be able to get them in season. If you like this content, please consider liking and subscribing. But let's take a look at some trades that you need to be doing right now. It's been a disappointing last couple of years for Jaylen Waddle, finishing at wide receiver 43 last year and finishing with under 1,000 receiving yards for the first time in his 4-year career. He burst onto the scene as a rookie, finishing as wide receiver 14 in PPR leagues, topped that by finishing at wide receiver 8 in his sophomore season, but it has been a downhill slide since then. And that's kind of the same for the Miami Dolphins offense. It was explosive when Mike McDaniel first took over, but in the past couple of years, first of all, Tua has really been struggling for health with multiple concussions that seem like at one point it could force him to retire. But also that O-line has really been struggling. The running game has been figured out and the offense just didn't look as powerful as it once did. But Jaylen Waddle is still incredibly young. He is signed with this team for another 3 years, but he's going into the season at the same age as some of the wide receivers who've just come into the class through the draft. But he represents a huge target to me. There are rumors that Tyreek Hill could not be on this team next season, most of which are actually coming from Tyreek Hill themselves. And the issue for Waddle was always Tyreek taking up some of the same areas of the field that we wanted Waddle to be seeing. Namely, playing out of the slot, being used as a bit more of a gimmicky weapon on end arounds and in the running game, but also being used for those yards after the catch targets where he can take a screen pass or a swing pass underneath all the way to the house using that elite speed. If Tyreek Hill is dealt, Jaylen Waddle immediately becomes the wide receiver 1 on this team, and they're really lacking for anything else in the depth chart. There is a certain amount of risk here because obviously the Dolphins offense could not take the next step or sort out a bunch of their issues, but if Tyreek goes and Tua can stay healthy, it is wheels up for Waddle in 2025 and beyond. For all of these players I'm suggesting that you trade for, I want to offer 3 ideas of ways you could move for them. The first thing that I would look at is a straight up pick deal, and I'm looking around the 110. This is quite an obvious cliff for me in this year's rookie draft. At this kind of stage in the draft, you're looking at Luther Burden, Matthew Golden, maybe Jaden Higgins, or Tyler Warren. I would rather Jaylen Waddle than all of those players, but to be honest, I think you could maybe trade a later pick for him. At the running back position, I would be willing to send James Cook straight up for Jaylen Waddle. I actually did this in a league last year, and while it didn't really pay off for the 2024 season, I'm quite excited to see what can happen with Waddle going forwards. And James Cook is someone coming towards his second contract, so if you can trade a second contract running back for a younger wide receiver, that's something you should always be looking to do. The third option, I think this might be a slightly controversial one. I'd be more than happy to pay Jameson Williams with maybe a late second on top to get Jaylen Waddle. Jameson Williams is rumored to be on the trade block from the Detroit Lions, and while we have seen some flashes from him, I'm not sure it's enough to be able to sustain consistent volume for fantasy football. So if you could trade him either straight up or with a little bit more on top for Waddle, that's a move I'd be looking to make 100% of the time. The prince who was promised, Trevor Lawrence, hasn't really turned out the way that we wanted it to. Finished as QB8 in his second season, but it has been on the downturn since then. Last season, finishing at QB27, only playing 10 games after suffering with multiple injuries throughout the season, and ultimately being shut down because there was no point, and they kind of wanted to tank to try and get a better draft pick. Trevor Lawrence obviously has been one of the winners of the offseason, not just because they went and traded up for Travis Hunter and because they still have Brian Thomas Jr., but they also did some work to try and fix the interior of the offensive line. They got him a running back in Bashal Tutin who should be able to help him out with the running game, which has been so stagnant the last couple of years. But most importantly, they went and got Liam Cohen, who did fantastic work with Baker Mayfield last season in Tampa Bay, and James Gladstone as an ambitious and exciting young general manager that will help him manage this franchise going forward and do a much better job than we've seen with the Jags in the past few years, which has been an absolute shit show. Don't know if I'm allowed to swear on YouTube, but there we go. Trevor Lawrence is one of the clear winners of the offseason, and if he can't do it now, it's time to start talking about his future. but he is still available at a giant discount, being valued towards the low teens in quarterbacks in Dynasty rankings, maybe somewhere around QB 17 or QB 18. He is available so cheaply because people are disappointed that he's not been what they wanted him to be after they spent the 101 pick on him in rookie drafts back in 2021. But with the new offensive cast around him, highlighted by Travis Hunter and Liam Cohen now calling the plays, it is a really fantastic time to be paying Trevor Lawrence. And you don't even have to pay that much to acquire him. I'm incredibly high on Trevor Lawrence. I always really have been. Even the fall off in the last couple of years hasn't stopped me from being quite bullish on him. So I have him in a lot of places. In Dynasty leagues, to be honest, I would trade the 101 for him in Superflex, but I don't think you have to. I think you could probably get a little bit more on top for the 101, but the 102, I would rather Trevor Lawrence than Cam Ward straight up. So I'd be quite happy sending that pick. In terms of then other options you could do, maybe look towards a late first and a 2026 first. Starting quarterback with elite upside should normally cost about 3 firsts in Superflex, with that fully elite tier costing about 4. So paying 2 firsts for Trevor Lawrence feels a good deal to me. Then there's quite a lot of excitement in Dynasty circles and in the real NFL for sure around Michael Penix. But with the lack of exciting play calling around him and the lack of true weapons outside of Drake London, obviously Bijan Robinson, but not so much weapons in the receiving game, I'm not so sure that Michael Penix is going to be something significant in the future. So if you could trade Penix for Lawrence, that is a deal that I would be looking to do. Maybe you need to send an early second on top, but maybe you'll be able to do it straight up. I would be down to do that 100% of the time. If you are enjoying this content, please consider liking and subscribing. There are so many more videos coming your way the rest of this off season, and I'm so close to 500 subscribers, which is a huge milestone to me. So why not be part of that journey? But let's look at the next trade, which is a wide receiver that I am bullish on this off season. In his rookie season, Rashee Rice finished as the wide receiver 27 in PPR leagues, but bear in mind he only came into his own down the stretch. Last season, he was injured after 4 games, but if you expand those 4 games out to a 17-game pace, he would have been finished as the wide receiver 3 last season. Rashee Rice is an unbelievable talent that people just aren't paying attention to. He is easily a top 8 Dynasty wide receiver to me, but the general consensus on him is much lower. People are worried about the niggling suspension issues, even if that seems to have gone quite quiet and doesn't seem like he's going to be suspended this season, although it's not something I can really comment on too much. And they're worried about the injury. But if you've seen recent footage of him in voluntary OTAs, you see that he's moving essentially completely fine. This is Patrick Mahomes' number 1 target. And the key thing is that Travis Kelce has thrived not only in the red zone, but underneath and in the middle of the field. And that is where Rashee Rice truly thrives. While people might be looking at trying to find a tight end that's going to be the successor to Travis Kelce, I think Rashee Rice is the successor to Travis Kelce. He's going to have a huge amount of target volume. He is Mahomes' favorite target outside of Kelce, and you can get a discount for the time being because people are worried about the suspension and the injuries. But remember, this is Dynasty. This is a long-term game. Even if he is suspended for 4 games this season, it's worth it for the price that you can acquire him for. You can see from the prices I've listed that I am incredibly high on Rashee Rice. You probably don't have to pay any of these prices. I would be looking to send the 104 for him. I would consider Ted McMillan or Travion Henderson in the same tier, but ultimately I'd have Rashee Rice over them, so maybe I'd send the 103. I would have him straight up over Lad McConkey, and this is the one that people in the comments are going to kick off about. I would have him straight up over Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley is 29 and a running back. Rashee Rice is obviously much younger and a receiver, so will play for much longer in the league. Now, if you are so close to winning the title, maybe keep Barkley because he might be able to spur you on to the title this next season. But for me, I am so bullish on this player. He's someone that I love, and I think people are generally down on both Rice and Mahomes right now, and I think there's a clear buy window because people just aren't seeing the elite potential that's there with a wide receiver going into his 3rd year with one of the best quarterbacks in the league as his favorite target, fully healthy, not suspended. I don't really know what I'm missing here. Chig Okonkwo is going into his 4th season in the NFL, having never finished as a top 20 tight end. But it is wheels up for that Titans offense, especially with the lack of clarity who's going to be the number 2 target behind Calvin Ridley. Is it going to be Chimere Dike, Xavier Restrepo because of the connection with Cam Ward? Is it going to be Elika Yomenor, who obviously dropped much further than we thought he would in the draft, but potentially has the most potential out of those other weapons? Or is it going to be someone else that we're just not anticipating? This is the best quarterback that Chig will have played with, although it's not really a big question. Looking at Malik Willis and Will Levis for the last couple of years, Ryan Tannehill's a good player as well, but Cam Ward has way more potential. And if you like the look of that offense, you should be buying into cheaper pieces of it before they break out. Chig has the chance to be the number 2 receiving option on this team. He is an athletic freak who is great at yards after the catch, which is the same type of mold that Cam Ward saw success with in college with Elijah Arroyo, now of the Seahawks. It used to be said that tight ends would break out in year 4. And guess what year Okonkwo is going into? It's year 4. So it might not have been as exciting as you'd have wanted thus far in his career, but Chig is a clear buy low target if you want to buy into a piece of what should be an ascending offense in the next few years. Again, this is a player that I'm quite bullish on, so I'm looking at around the 206 for him. I would have him as the tight end 4 in this class, so just after Mason Taylor. So anywhere after Taylor, I'm quite happy taking him. If you are a tight end needy team and you are in your rookie drafts, wait until Taylor goes, offer your next pick for Chig Okonkwo. Then someone like Jalen McMillan, again, a player I used to be really high on, but now the wide receiver 4 in the pecking order in Tampa Bay, but a player that people still really like. I think you could make this move happen. I'd be quite happy to send a 2026 second for Okonkwo. I don't think you need to. I think you might be able to do it with 2 3s, but I think this is an offense that I want buying into and a talented, athletic player who I think has potential to really explode in the next couple of seasons. Rico Dowdle was a breakout star of 2024, but is still going massively under the radar. He finished as the running back 23 in PPR leagues, ultimately earning the bell cow role in Dallas, even though they tried to replace him with some ancient running backs in Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook, but Dowdle held on to the job, finishing with his first 1,000-yard season and with over 250 yards through the air as well. He has moved to the Carolina Panthers this offseason, who obviously have a need at running back too because of the health of Jonathan Brooks, who they drafted in the 2nd round last year, who tore his ACL before the draft and then again at the end of last season. That means that the bell cow going into 2025 is Chuba Hubbard, behind a really exciting offensive line and with an ascending offense as well with Bryce Young. But Rico Dowdle is a relatively similar player to Chuba Hubbard, maybe slightly better in the receiving game, but he's available incredibly cheap because people know that Hubbard is likely to start the season. Hubbard has struggled with injury problems of his own, so Dowdle is an incredibly cheap asset that you could acquire for a very late rookie pick and potentially have the option to start as an RB2 or flex option. First of all, if there's any sort of injury to Chuba Hubbard, but also even if he just earns the receiving work in this offense, which we think is an offense on the way up. Dowdle is such a cheap player for you to acquire and has a fair amount of upside and a relatively safe floor as well. Trades I would make for Rico Dowdle, you're looking at the 301. I think he has a safer floor than any player you're going to be getting in the 3rd round, so I'd be quite happy sending that pick for him. Rashad Bateman as well, maybe not in best ball, but Bateman has never been able to hold on to a significant role in the Ravens offense, so I'd be quite happy making that move. And then also Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith obviously spiked last season with the Dolphins, but I don't see that continuing going forwards, so I'd be quite happy sending him as a tight end depth piece to get a running back depth piece, given that the injuries are way more likely to happen at the running back position. Then finishing off with everyone's least favourite running back, but someone that you need to be targeting. Brian Robinson had a slightly down season last season after finishing as the running back 8 in 2023. He obviously had a little bit of an injury problem and shared the backfields to an extent with Austin Eckler. But it's very notable that the Commanders didn't go out and draft a running back. They didn't go out and sign a running back. They invested elsewhere. They invested in the offensive line with Laramie Tunsil, and then in the 1st round again with Josh Connolly. So it is wheels up now for Brian Robinson. Austin Eckler is only getting older and already seemed to be running out of juice last season. Brian Robinson is going to be going into the 2025 season as the starting running back in one of our favorite offenses. He can run, he can catch, he's good around the goal line. We've seen him with multiple games with 2 touchdowns. He's playing in an offense with Jayden Daniels, who we all absolutely love, and yet nobody seems to want Brian Robinson. As I said when I spoke about Chig Okonkwo earlier, if you want a piece of an exciting offense, go and get one of the cheapest ones and hope they can form a bigger role. Brian Robinson has a chance to be the bell cow in this backfield. Austin Eckler clearly doesn't have it anymore. He is really getting up there. I think he's past 30. I'm not actually 100% sure. Brian Robinson is a perfectly good running back. He's just not the exciting electric option that people wanted him to be or people want their running backs to be in Dynasty. But as a running back 2 or a flex option, he is perfect for you to go and buy. And he is available so cheap right now. These are the deals that I've been making for Brian Robinson. The 206, I think if you look at rookies as well, I'd probably take him over Cam Scatterbo, who I have at the same sort of price. And again, with Bashal Tootin, I'd be willing to take Brian Robinson a little bit earlier. Ricky Pearsall, I think this would be a great trade to make. Pearsall has a chance to go in as the wide receiver 1 in this offense, but more likely it's going to be Brandon Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, George Kittle as well as a receiving option, Christian McCaffrey as a receiving option, and then Ricky Pearsall. So I think you can trade a seemingly ascending player for one with a much higher floor, and then a 2026 second. That is one of my favorite trades to make, which is sending a second next season for a relatively stable but relatively boring running back to just help clog up your roster, offer some depth, and that is exactly what Brian Robinson Jr. of the Washington Commanders can do for your team. That is going to do it for today. If you've made a trade recently and you want to ask me my thoughts, or if you have an offer sat in your inbox that you want my advice on, drop it down below in the comments and like the video and subscribe to the channel while you're there. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.